Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver, holding up the dub for Wembley because we're heading to Wembley.
We're going to Wembley. It feels like a dream, man.
So we're recording straight after leg 2, UCL semifinal in Paris, taking the win. Mats Hummels, you beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man. Also, shout out to the posts, you beautiful, beautiful man.
You beautiful, beautiful post.
Kobel 2.0.
Yeah.
I mean, you just give you give the credit to Kobel, right? For just being, they know he's so big. They got to shoot a little wider. They got to shoot a little higher. And guess what? The post is there. When Kobel can't reach it, the post is there. Holy shit. Man. How you feeling, Carver?
Like I said, man, it feels like a dream. This past year has just been full of unrelenting pain. Everyone, including myself, doubted we would even make it out of the Champions League group. And here we are tearing down giants all year long, going back through the group stage, the knockout stage, to reach the Champions League final. Fuck Dembele, fuck Mbappe, fuck PSG for being an oil-drilling, state-ran, money-hungry, plastic, pathetic excuse of a club. Let's go.
Yep. Cool. All right. That's it. That's man. Yeah, this is, I don't know. This is wild. And I think our expectations coming off last season was obviously not Champions League final. We were like hopeful that it was like, maybe we're going to like, as fans, like, yeah, we just missed out on Bundesliga. The goal, what we should strive for is maybe actually taking the Bundesliga title. But I don't think we thought that was realistic. And just putting that into perspective is like, I don't think Champions League was on any of our radar as a goal, or like, it's just something we haven't made a good run in quite a few years. So it's like, if the goal is, when it comes to Champions League, has been, I think, let's just make a decent showing, and holy hell, we're doing a little more than that. And it's been crazy. Obviously Bundesliga hasn't been the success we wanted it to be. Are still in Champions League, obviously next year, because we're going to win it, so that birds you into it, and getting that securing that fifth place spot. There is a lot to talk about. We have the Augsburg match, but we gotta start with Champions League first, and then we'll backtrack a little bit and talk on the Augsburg match, because I mean there's a lot to talk about there too, with the rotation of everybody. And still getting a crazy win. I've got to say, because of the roller coaster that is being a Dortmund fan, and the win over the weekend, I was not optimistic, because I know the swings of this team. I'm like, we had two good things. Where's the drop, right? Where's the dip? And it's going to be this bowing out. But obviously, I'm super hyped. Like, I'm hyped. We're moving on. I even think I'd be pretty happy if we would have bowed out. That might be a weird thing to say now, but I'm still just so proud of like this Champions League run in general, and the fact that we're moving on, and the fact that we're doing it for Reus, mother effing Reus. Yeah, it's just so awesome.
Yeah, we haven't covered it yet, but Marco Reus, of course, everyone has heard by now, has made a mutual decision with the club to not extend his contract. Unfortunately, I mean, it's obviously very heartbreaking to see. Spent 12 years at the club, but what a send-off this could be. I mean, just coming full circle. I mentioned when we had Stefan on a few weeks back that Bayern still could be in that final at Wembley, and we could have a rematch 11 years later. And just giving Reus the opportunity to lift the trophy that is the Champions League final would just be even more of a dream. I mean, it's truly almost unspeakable to give him, you know, what everyone has in the world, Dortmund fan or not, has been wanting this man to have for so long now. The success that he has just so much more than just deserved for so long now.
I want you to speak a little more on Reus, just because as someone who's been a fan of Dortmund for way longer than I have, can you just speak to, I don't know, a little Reus tribute, if you will, Carver, and like his without putting too much pressure on you or putting you on the spot, but just speak to Reus and like what he means to this club, coming from the academy, and I don't know, everything you want to say.
Well, there's nothing I think I could say. I could go on for hours, and there's nothing I could say that would probably do this man justice, just for the iconic figure that he is, monumental figure that he is for Borussia Dortmund. This man, he just breathes black and yellow. He's been a part of the club since he was a kid. Whenever it's the youth academy, of course, he had a short stint at Gladbach, but he had such a long stint as a professional player at Dortmund and turned down so many ludicrous offers at clubs that are usually having more chances at silverware, obviously have unlimited cash flow that he could have gone to, but he consistently chose Dortmund year in and year out for so long now. And that just speaks on just a tiny bit of the class that this man has on and off the field. I mean, he is truly a world-class professional in every sense of the word. He's also a legend of this club in every sense of the word. Everyone has seen, that's listening to this podcast, surely you've seen him play for a number of years now, or even if you're a newer fan, you've just seen what he can bring, even in his limited role. Of course, he didn't shine too much in this PSG game, but you've seen the class that he brings whenever he plays for this team. And it's really shitty to see him go. But again, I'm just so excited to see the image of him lifting that Champions League trophy, because there's no one on earth that I would want to see lift that trophy more. Honestly, not a single player.
There's going to be a lot of, well, I mean, we'll see what happens. Again, we're recording this literally right after the PSG match. So who knows what's going to happen with Bayern Real Madrid. We'll find out maybe by the time you're listening, you know what happens. But if it is that rematch, there's with Bayern, like there's going to be so much, the Harry Kane into this story is going to be so wild. And I feel like I can see that scenario going both ways, and both of them are equally as crazy. Right. That you have Harry Kane in Bayern going to the Champions League final, like Harry Kane given a chance to win a trophy in London and still loses it, which would be amazing for us, obviously. And then, or Harry Kane with his new club goes back to London to win the Champions League final and finally lifts a trophy, which is two super hyper crazy scenarios that could play out. But yeah, how much sweeter is it for us and Reus and the send off? And oh man, and just, I mean, you play and take out. I know I watched a lot of Premier League too, so that's where like I see the Harry Kane tie-in. So I apologize. I'm not asking for any of those scenarios necessarily, but you know that's going to be so hyped up if Bayern gets to there. It's going to be so much like in the dialogue of the build-up and everything. So it's just a crazy scenario that could play out. But I think it's if it plays out, whether like before the match, it is cool to see, like you kind of have the Reus versus Kane, like these two stories. But yeah, and just the Bayern Dortmund rematch aspect of it too, because it's been, Bayern was in the final a few years back, maybe
2019 or 20, one of the two. I think it might have been like maybe even 2021. I forget.
Yeah, and there's just so much. There's so much weird stuff about all of this, right? If Bayern and Dortmund get in the final, the year Leverkusen wins, the year Dortmund beats Bayern, it's all wild to think of. And maybe I don't need to think of it at all, because like I said, maybe by the time you're listening, Bayern already got knocked out. We'll see. So I'll just shut up about this. We can talk about that a little more later. Let's get into the match, though. Obviously, we were up 1-0 on aggregates after getting the 1-0 win in Dortmund. So we head to Paris, and I'm struggling to pull up the lineup, but it's basically the same lineup that we had rolled out, because we had the full rotation minus Kobel from the match on the weekend. But it's Maatsen left back, Schlotterbeck, Hummels, Rierson, Kobel in goal with Chan, Brandt, Sabitzer, Adeyemi, Füllkrug, and Sancho. I mean, pretty much what we expected, especially seeing the rotation on the weekend. But thoughts on that coming into this?
Yeah, it's an identical lineup. Only the formation was slightly tweaked. I think we ran with more like a 4-3-3 today, and we adjusted as the game went on. But like we mentioned before, this is pretty much our best 11 that we can have going forward for just to finish out the season. And definitely, without a doubt, the strongest midfield too. And I think that's what Terzic, and really any person with any sort of IQ, would want to try to have going into this game, because PSG made adjustments, and adjustments that we were predicting as well. I mean, they played Ramos as a true number 9. Mbappe shifted over to the left wing so he can go ISO. Hakimi was more involved in their wide play. So these were like Herculean tasks for both Maatsen and Rierson both. I mean, those two had fantastic performances. A lot of those attacks, at least in the first half, did come down that right-hand side. So Maatsen had a lot to deal with, whether it was from Hakimi, Dembele. But either way, huge task for those fullbacks, and they really, I mean, like everyone else in that back line today, every single one of those four stepped up. Their showing of commitment, their courage, their hearts, their concentration too, to not, have any sort of mental blocks the entire game was just, it was admirable.
I got to give a shout out to Maatsen, which I give him a lot of shout outs because I freaking love the man. And I think this maybe speaks more to Chelsea's lack of confidence in him, or lack of, I don't know, there's a lot you could break down about Chelsea, but this is a dude who was playing in the championship, the English championship last year, because he was on loan at Burnley, if I'm getting that correct.
Yeah.
So, the English championship, and it's just balling out in the Champions League semifinal. Like, oh, God. I don't know. We spoke endlessly about Maatsen, but in this match specifically, I'm just like, well, I turned to my I was watching at the office. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, one of my coworkers is unfortunately a PSG fan. And I just turned to him when I think he made a tackle or something. I was just like, played with Burnley last year in the championship.
Not even as a fullback, too.
Yeah.
Played a lot of winger whenever he was at Burnley. Yeah, I mean, he was a monster today. I mean, you saw his legs, like everyone else's, was just shot at the end. I mean, this team, even though a lot of them, obviously we had a lot of heavy rotation at the weekend, you would see just how much of a toll this game had on the players because they just gave all of what they had to try to grind out this result. I mean, getting 2 clean sheets in a row against PSG, a side that always has an overwhelming amount of quality in their front line. I mean, that is no easy task. It is, again, a Herculean task to keep them quiet and at bay. And PSG, yeah, they had a lot of shots this game, and they've definitely had a lot on target too, hit the post a few times. But I don't think that takes away any sort of the credit for everyone in that back line. And Sabitzer, too, put in a hell of a shift defensively to get themselves in front of the ball and block 10 shots this game and shut down so many chances to shoot on so many other occasions as well. I mean, you could argue in that first half, we looked the more dangerous side with that best chance coming from Adeyemi. I mean, it was a terrific run, originally coming out of playing out of pressure from Brandt, and then, found some space for Adeyemi. That was a really good chance, and it was a hell of a save from Donnarumma. But other than that first half, I mean, I think we were the most dangerous side, and just a very, very defensively sound performance the whole game, but you definitely saw in that first half as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the shots, so I'll get into stats a little bit, and especially on the first half too, because there was a bit of back and forth. We were under a lot of pressure at times, but we were also getting some chances. Maybe not. I think the Adeyemi chance was the best, and we were getting maybe not a lot of really good looks, but we were getting in dangerous positions. It was kind of something we've seen all year, where it's like we're kind of struggling to get that final pass. But that Adeyemi was probably the best chance of the half out of both teams. But I mean, ball possession 70% to 30%, which you kind of expect.
Definitely,
we're ahead, so they have to come at us and come strong. So I appreciate that we were able to withstand, like coming into this game. That's what we need to do. Expected goals 3.2 to 0.7. Total shots 30 for PSG.
10 of those were blocked. I mentioned that already. And 5 of those were off target.
5 on target.
15 off target. Yeah.
15 off target. But the ones that hit the post don't count as on target because it's the post. So, which is that's such a weird little fact in this stat. Like, I'm like, if you hit the post, I mean, it's kind of on target. I
actually argue on that side as well. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense because if it's on target, that means it's going in, right? But I mean, you count.
You can hit the post and go in though at the same time,
Yeah, I don't know. So, but just obviously we're in the thick of it. Like, we're just hanging on the pressure. I remember at halftime, I just felt like I was so stressed that whole half. Even because we were creating chances, but also we had to withstand all their chances too. And it was just like this sense of not relief. I mean, it was a relief we made it to the half, but I was still so stressed.
PSG has been behind a number of fixtures this season in the Champions League alone, where they've come back and clawed the game back and actually pulled out a win against some really high profile teams. So Terzic gave a really good halftime speech, I would imagine, to just keep us really concentrated, locked in, not give away any space. I think the midfield did a great job. I mentioned already of just that defensive effort, limiting their options going to the middle. I mean, Mbappe drifted centrally at times, but he was pushed back out wide. Either way, he was really pocketed by Reus, at least for the most part. Hummels, Sula later on to Schlotterbeck both Schlotterbeck and Hummels put on a clinic for center halves. And sure, like again, they hit the post, they got unlucky, but at the same time, how many times has Dortmund gotten unlucky? Way more in so many years counting back. I mean, year after year after year, we get utterly screwed out of a big game like this. The biggest one that comes to mind is whenever we played Man City in the quarters, if I'm not wrong, and Jude Bellingham had that chance on Ederson, and Ederson just kind of dove, and they pulled it back for a foul, even though Ederson was just out of his own box trying to juggle, and Jude just cleanly swept it right off of him. It's plays like that cost us, and it just happens so many goddamn times. And even against Paris, I mean, the handball against Sula when we had the first game, I think, in Paris in the group stage, and when he was falling down awkwardly, I don't know what his hand is supposed to do there. So all that to say, I don't give a shit about any of those posts. And just the players have said the same thing. We're in the final, and I don't feel bad whatsoever given all those calls that went against us over the past several years now. Do not feel bad whatsoever.
No, and yeah, I mean, hitting the post, it just means you weren't quite good enough. It doesn't mean you got robbed. It just means like your shot just
especially when you're at point blank range, like skill issue, bro. Sorry.
Yeah, there's the Gonzalo what's his name? Their striker who was playing number 9 today.
Oh, Ramos, yeah.
Ramos, where the ball's whipped in, and he tries it, he kind of flicks it back, and then they hit the post right after that. It's like, that's just like, sorry, you just didn't. I don't know. I'm not here to just talk mad shit on PSG, even though I'll do it a little bit. I still think we come win. We got the win. That's all that matters. We're moving on. And Matt's mother effing Matt's Hummels, who I also rubbed in the face of my coworker who is a PSG fan. That I love this coworker. I feel like I shouldn't be throwing him under the bus so much, but I did it last episode. Got to do it this time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ken. I love you. You just picked a shit team, and I'm glad we won. But Matt Hummels, who last year we weren't even sure what his role was going to be, if he was going to have a role, if we were going to have him this year. There was so much talk about signing the Matt Hummels replacement, bringing someone else in, which one we didn't. We didn't bring anyone in to come learn underneath him. There's no one to be the understudy still yet. No clue, but just been performing consistently all year long. I was so worried at the early part of the year when Champions League kicked off, and he's playing. I've said it so many times on this podcast, but you just got to emphasize it again with the performances he's still putting on throughout the entire year. He's playing on the weekend, he's playing midweek, and he just doesn't stop. I was so concerned for like him getting injured or him just not having the stamina, and so happily proven wrong. He has been just insane this year. He's been so good, so consistent. He is maybe our player of the season. He's outrageous.
Yeah,
outrageous.
I think that's a fair shout.
And has the defensive performances he's been having, and then stepping up and getting the goal to secure the win. Just right. I love him.
And how many times too in the dying minutes did he step out of our back line to initiate the pressure, take on that initiative, and like keep the play towards the center of the half to keep our pressure just a little bit off as those dying minutes came into fruition, because PSG were really starting to apply that pressure in the last like half hour. But Hummels, man, continuously stepping up, metaphorically and literally getting out of that back line to keep that pressure off of us. But it wasn't just him. Again, it was a really good team performance of having that, at times mid block. It definitely shifted more into a low block at that definitely the last third of the game. But you had the perfect amount of spacing in between each player. Again, they really communicated well with covering each other too for certain runs. And just the concentration that was required to, again, keep Paris quiet is so admirable. It's I'm in disbelief still. I'm sorry to keep repeating myself, but I'm in disbelief. And we said it again before, but like the contrast between the performances that we've seen in the Bundesliga are some of the worst that I've seen Dortmund play since I've been a supporter, at least on a consistent basis. And then you're seeing us potentially have one of the most historic wins. We already have had plenty, but definitely going forward, one of the most historic wins in club history. It's a roller coaster of emotions, man. I'm just on cloud 9 though.
Yeah, I I feel like we've been saying the same things over and over, but we're already 20 minutes into the episode, so we can just keep cruising. I do want to speak on the substitutions this game too. Cool. This is what we need, and we touched on. I think the last PSG match maybe we touched on we kind of waited longer to sub. I don't think we made the first sub until like the 80th something minute. But this felt right too, because you see Sula come in, right? And you see we keep our whole defensive line, then you add Sula into that. And it wasn't, what was the match where we should have brought Sula in and we put on another attacker? Oh, it's when we brought in Duranville in one match, and we probably should have, the Leipzig match, I think is what it was. Yeah. But this is the move. Get more defensively packed. Leverkusen,
actually, excuse me.
I know we've harped
whenever
on
Duranville came on
subs a lot. And I just think these were good. We did see Adeyemi go out in the 56th minute for Reus coming in. That was pretty early, but I'm not mad about it. I wanted to see Reus come in. I think after everything too, given Reus's performance against Augsburg, and he's maybe a little slightly more motivated too with everything going on. Give him the time, give him the chance. I wasn't mad about that one at all. We see. Yeah, Sancho come off, and also just for how hard those guys are working. I don't know. I just agreed and thought the subs were fine this match, which is okay, maybe things are clicking a little bit or getting a little better finally this late in the season.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident Reus is going to use these last few performances to really roll back the gears and just squeeze everything he can out of himself to give himself, some of the best performances he can for this team, for this. Not only for the Champions League final, but hopefully his last few Bundesliga games as well, to give other players a little bit more of a rest. The only other idea I had, because I was very surprised that we had a full squad available, albeit besides Duranville and of course Benzabaini, who's out for the season. Pretty much everyone was at his disposal. So I was a little surprised that we didn't see the likes of Malen or JBG later in the game, just because Paris had so many numbers committed forward. We could have a good chance to catch them on the counter. Fulkrug, of course, his hold-up play is vital in those dying minutes. And I have no idea how fit Haller was. Maybe he was just there as a motivational factor. I'm not sure. But, yeah, you have the hold-up play, but I still think you could have a really pacing winger that can cause them a lot of problems in those dying minutes. So I was expecting that, but it doesn't matter what I think because we got the win anyway.
There was that chance, and maybe this is the sub, right? Maybe it's Malen in instead of Mecha, which I think he went on for Brandt. So you could argue Reus drops into that midfield with Malen playing as one of the wingers, and then maybe you have that chance. There's nothing to say that he would have been in the exact same position, but we had that breakaway. I don't remember if it was Schlotterbeck or maybe it was Fulkrug going with it, and Mecha was running down the middle and just so slow. Which is and I'm not. Last time I harped a lot on Mecha, and I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to say that was a really good opportunity for a counter. Where if it was someone like Malen, if Adeyemi was still in there, it probably would have been a breakaway and scored the second goal.
Malen or JBG for sure. Fulkrug had space too. I mean, he was in front of the last defender and had the whole half to run. So, and I know he was gassed, so he probably had a decent idea of just kind of holding up and waiting for a supporting run to come on either side of him. But yeah, you would expect, us to be in a better position whenever we do have the likes of Malen or JBG in that example. Yeah, I know Mecha came on just only a few minutes this game, but still similar things. I wish I could see a little bit more effort from him. I did see him track some runs this game, which is good. It's a step in the right direction, but I want to see more from him, given just how dedicated every other player was on this field, especially too with just the oath of trying to give Reus that title. I'm expecting a little bit more from him.
Anything else from this game specifically before?
It was just such an intense match, and I'm hoping everyone had a good 12 to 24 hours to decompress before listening to this episode and just really release, because I don't know. It's still hard to find the words to articulate what I'm feeling, man. This is crazy. We have just now a little under a month to really June 1st. June 1st in the final, to just really relish in this, because this is a very, very, very special moment. Dortmund has only been in the Champions League final twice in its club history. Of course, the winning season in the 90s, and then the tragic heartbreak in the obviously the reverse time against Munich in 2013, I think. But either way, what an opportunity we have in our hands.
Who are you hoping to see in the final? What's your thoughts on this? And shout out to real quick, I will shout out our Discord, which was just popping off today. I kept getting the notifications during the match, and I was very hesitant to check them because I was worried that my stream was delayed and I didn't want to ruin anything. I was like hesitant. I was checking eventually, but shout out to everyone in our Discord, which has been growing. And it's so cool to see. We've said it before. Carver and I live in St. Louis, but this podcast reaches people all across the world, which is amazing to us because, like I said, we're just two dudes from St. Louis who are Dortmund fans. And it's cool to see not only some of our St. Louis friends, but people elsewhere across the country and world who are also in the Discord. It's a really cool little community right now that's building to just connect with other Dortmund fans. So if you want to join our Discord, the link is in the description of this episode. And again, it was so, I don't know, a lot of times like I can't watch a game live, so maybe I'll put it on mute so I don't see any spoilers, but something like a day like today, watching the game and having the Discord chat with such like a monumental game too is, I don't know, it's really cool to just connect with people on the fly in a space that is not as toxic as Twitter.
Right.
Twitter can suck sometimes, even though a lot of celebrations, everything's good on Twitter, on Dortmund Twitter today, nothing wrong with it, but it's a really cool community. And especially if you're not on social, it's a good way to connect with us and other Dortmund fans. So make sure you join our Discord. But I know their consensus, the question was posed, who do you guys want? And I think it was pretty unanimous that everyone wants to see Bayern in the final. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Madrid are a very cohesive unit at the moment. They just won La Liga. They are really steamrolling a lot of teams. They have an overwhelming amount of quality in all aspects of the pitch, not just the front line. You have the likes of Jude Bellingham being able to tear down anyone he wants, and I do not want to see him try to eliminate us. That's a reason that I don't know if many people thought about yet, but that is something that would be very traumatic. Of course, too, I mean, it's the opposite end of the spectrum for Bayern, right? You have a team that's completely disjointed at the moment. Players are kind of in and out of the team, whether it's for injury, fitness, or I would argue even mostly because of form. So they haven't really found like their best 11. Alphonso Davies has been very questionable when it comes to his form this season. You had the likes of Dyer starting over like De Ligt and Kim. So, you can go a bunch of different ways. Guerrero, of course, his season's over as well. So there's been, a handful of talents that are pretty questionable when it comes to his form or fitness. So I think it's a no-brainer personally. And of course, you have the likes of like the players just not being as motivated under Tuchel because of just his future and the state of the club really in general. I mean, top, bottom, they're in a lot of disarray at the moment. But all that to say, I think it's got to be Bayern Munich. And also just for the story of it too, 10 years or 11 years later, coming back full circle to really just put our foot on their throat and win the Champions League trophy over them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Bayern definitely. I think they have been a different beast in Champions League. I think Tuchel he's a coach who can kind of grind things. Like, I mean, we saw he did it with Chelsea, right? He won the Champions League with Chelsea when he probably didn't have a right to. He's a coach who can get results in these big tournaments,
right.
And I think he has been able to. And maybe there's a little bit of pressure's off him a bit because he said he's out the door, and it feels like if you pay attention to just Bundesliga news in general, it seems a lot because of the toxicity at Dortmund or Bayern, excuse me, and him leaving. He is a manager who can cause so many problems, but because he's like out, he's just kind of like chilling and just like doing whatever. And
right.
in Champions League, it's working, and he's like kind of getting those results. And yeah, that's that dynamic too of him already being out the door. I don't know, maybe he'll stay now because they're struggling. They can't lock in a coach. They've had so many coaches turn them down. But I don't know if they come back to him and try to offer him something. I don't even know if he'd stay because he's more chill Thomas Tuchel right now. But yeah, there's so much. And I want Bayern more because of the history and the rematch, and less about like them being a club in chaos, because I think they could put on a performance. I could see them beating Real Madrid if that happens, but more the Bundesliga rivalry. And I think it is added pressure on them. Like, I think we can, for it to be us, right? Opposed to a different club. Like maybe they need that extra, like a Champions League, like a strong Champions League club, to step up and get those performances, those Thomas Tuchel performances. But I think we caused them a little more of a problem, being in their heads a little bit more, a little added pressure. We did beat them one year, or we beat them already this year. Maybe that adds to the pressure on us. It's like the time we beat them in the Bundesliga is the time they get us in the Champions League. But yeah, I'd much rather take them. But again, more for the history in that aspect of it, and less about just them being not as good this year.
Yeah, and either way, we are a team that is better whenever we are chasing against like just quote unquote like bigger oppositions, rather than us being the team that has it in our hands and then just fumbling it, right? So we're a much better team in that aspect. So either way, that's at least to an extent a little bit more beneficial for us. So I'm hoping the pressure can, like you said, just kind of roll on more into the team of whether it's Bayern or Madrid, and then we can play a little bit more with a little bit more confidence and just less pressure on our shoulders.
Okay. Do you want to backtrack a little bit? Talk Augsburg?
Yeah.
Oh, well, real quick, while we're still on Champions League, sorry, apologies, bouncing all over the place. One, I want to ask about, how was the Dam today? Carver watching at Amsterdam Tavern in St. Louis. I saw the scenes, shout him out a lot, but it's because we got a special tie with our New York homies at Brooklyn Brusen and Banter Bar, which just looked, there were so many people there. It was awesome. So I'm curious about how was the Dam and how was the experience watching there?
It was great. I mean, the St. Louis fan group always has a great showing, great group of people too. Of course, it's not like as crowded as usual, just because for whatever reason, whenever Dortmund are going in a big run like this, like the attention, I guess, is not, I don't know, as entertaining, I guess, because like usually whenever Champions League games are happening at this time of year, at least the places around here are a bit more crowded. But it doesn't bother me either way. I mean, more room for us to kind of spread out and put our merch all over the place. But it was fun. It was a great time as always, and I'm really excited to see the turnout come June 1st too. I mean, because we had the same thing whenever we were against Mainz last year. On that day, we had so many of us, so I'm excited, and I'm excited for every other fan group around the world too. I'm pulling for all of you to get any and all Borussen fans that you can to your destination on that day, so you could really, hopefully, have the win and celebrate together, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, we do have a link in the description of the podcast too, and I think hopefully it's been a good resource for anybody. Like outside of our Discord, like if you want to get connected with a local fan group, if maybe you don't know if there's one in your area, I think it's a link put on by Borussia Dortmund, where it's
right,
has all the fan groups or supporters clubs across the world. So you can check that link, and I think it's just how to like find the supporter club near you or whatever. So maybe hopefully you can find people in your area. Also, if you are listening or watching, and like you're a part of, like, I know there's some a little group in Dallas, DC, Boston. Obviously, we shouted out New York, quite a few others, Kansas
City too.
So, but anyone I'm forgetting, we want to help make those connections happen too. So reach out to us on social. We'll try to share the other clubs that we know of, especially if you're having the big watch party for the Champions League final. Let us know so we can share that and get people connected. And then on that note too, I don't know if we know anyone in Miami, but that's where I will be on June 1st. I say unfortunately, like I'll be down there for work. Unfortunately, because that means I won't be able to go to Amsterdam and watch with people. And I don't even know it's like the timing of it. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to go anywhere and watch it, because it might be in the middle of some work stuff. So I'll be watching on my phone.
Take the day off.
It's the worst. Day off against Messi.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, if there's one occasion to do that.
But if anyone's in Miami, let me know, and I might be able to come hang for a little bit for that. Yeah, it's just what what a time. If you've never gone and watched a match with any fellow Dortmund fans, we say it a lot. This is the freaking time to do it.
This is the time.
Oh my God. So connect with us and find a group in your area. But moving on and moving back to the Bundesliga, where we had a good showing. We had a really good showing with a fully rotated lineup against Augsburg, who still had stuff to play for. I know our Bundesliga season, we still got a chance to. Fourth is still on the line, but we just didn't have as much to play for. And obviously, we rotated the entire squad. And Augsburg has been way better this season. I think they're still sitting in 7th. They have a little more to play for. That Europe is still on the line for them, especially if we do them a little favor and win the Champions League. But yeah, so they have something to play for, and we just came out and we completely destroyed them. The Marco Reus show, who just right after the announcement, of course, he gets a start and just puts on a show. But we had Kobel in goal, Murray left. Was Murray? Yeah, Murray playing left back.
I was also surprised. I was also surprised at that when I saw that.
Sula, we had the return of Papadopoulos with some new hair. The man who always has his hair flowing changed it up quite a bit, but it was still in Papadopoulos style. This man is. I think I talked about him a lot in preseason because he's such a character who always shows up in preseason, always gets some good minutes in preseason, and then he plays the whole season with BVB 2. I think we had Marius Wolf. We had Mecha in the midfield with, I'm going to butcher the name, Vetchen. Is that it? Vetchen?
I've heard both.
Okay. 18-year-old.
Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
18-year-old. So if we get called out for pronunciations, just know I'm saying it wrong. I don't know how to say it. So I'm just prefacing. Vetchen, the 18-year-old center mid who has been with I think BVB 2 or under 21s, makes his debut with the first team. We can talk about him a bit because he was great.
He was, yeah.
Malen, Reus, bynoe-gittens, and Makoko up top. Real quick, too, I know. So obviously this is Reus's not his last game, but his last year with us now that we know. Is really sad. I know there are a couple other who, their contracts are coming to an end.
A lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, Papadopoulos being one of them. Wolf is Murray in that. So not only was this, part of the send-off for Reus, but, a chance for these guys to – I think it's valuable for them to get some minutes, kind of show what they can do, maybe still fight for an extension. I don't know if it's going to happen, especially with someone like Papadopoulos. But I think, yes, this was a rotation for Champions League, but also a good opportunity and moment for those guys as well to kind of, I don't know, get some good minutes, play in front of the home crowd, and, put on a freaking show because we just rolled.
Yeah, and a good chance for Malen to gain back some fitness. He's been out for several weeks now. Morey, this is his first start in a competitive match in several years now. You heard me right, years. He did have a few starts for some friendlies, I think, in the winter during that half-season break. But either way, it's great to see him back as well. You mentioned Reus having 4 goal contributions this game. Or, excuse me, 4, 3. 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 goal contributions. And Vachin as well. I'll say it slightly different. Maybe we could double down and have 2 different shots of getting it right. He looked fantastic as well. The man just turned 18 just about 2 months ago. He got an assist. He looked very lively on the ball. He was progressive in his play as well. He's very attack-minded. Picked out some great passes. I love the energy that he brought, and I'm very excited for him going forward because, my God, do we need more players like him. Not necessarily in the sense of defensive efforts, but and we haven't even seen much of him in that sense. Maybe he's good at that as well. But just, his distribution, his energy in that 6/8 role, very happy for him and very excited as well. And Augsburg, they would have been in 7th place had they won this game, but now they sit in 9th. And I was expecting a bit more from them because, like you said, there's still a spot in Europe for them to compete for. And I don't know. Maybe I was just, looking at the scoreline and it made me feel different, but it just didn't look like Augsburg really brought it on Saturday. They, of course, ended up scoring a goal, but I just was never really worried the whole game. I know we scored an early goal in the 4th minute from Mukoko, but either way, I was never really worried whatsoever concerning this game. I felt like it was pretty easy flowing the whole time.
Yeah, I'll talk on talk a little more. I want to go back to Vetchin just briefly and go through some stats. As you mentioned, just turned 18, his first team debut, played 90 minutes, which I think is pretty impressive to have your first team match and you go the full 90 minutes. 89% accurate passes, 3 chances created, 2 big chances created, even in this slight like deeper role. I think you even saw him. It took him a little bit to get his feet like. I think he had a slip that almost it led to a shot on goal where he kind of like he had the ball and he literally like just fell over. But I mean, he's 18. He's playing in Westfalen Stadium for the first time. And then he quickly turned that around and just impressed. 56 touches. Said he only had 1 successful dribble. I think that's always such a weird stat because I'm like, when you watch the match, you're like, what? I don't know where the actual breakdown of the successful dribble, because I feel like he carried the ball a little more than that. 5 out of 5, 100% long balls, also good. Yeah, just really, really impressed with him. And it was kind of this cool 100% tackles 1, 2 out of 2. And
some
then
headed clearances, recoveries. I mean, he had a few
recoveries.
ground duels 1 as well. I mean, he was everywhere. And I know you mentioned like the slip up early on. For a teenager that young, that can obviously like, if you're not mentally strong, that can hinder your confidence quite a bit. And, you know, if you don't pick yourself up, that could be a kind of a rough game for your debut. But the confidence that he had to not only pick himself up, but continuously get himself involved in the play on both sides of the ball, I think shows a lot about his character. It's a very small sample size, of course, but, you know, he played hard for 90 minutes and really showed that he belonged in a team of this kind of level at such a young age. So very impressive and very exciting prospect going forward.
And cool to see this almost like passing the torch moment. I think the commentators even mentioned it too, but with Reus heading out and then him coming in and playing the center mid role also, it's pretty cool. And I know it's a small sample size, but I'm like, at this point, I'm like, man, I feel like he earned himself a first team contract with that for next season. Unless they sign a ton of central midfielders. Reyna's probably a discussion for the off season to see what happens there. Which, I mean, obviously he could come back and step into that role if they want him. If Reyna wants it, I don't know. Again, this is summer talk, but I think it's such a really good showing for him, and I think a really cool prospect for next season, where we could possibly see a lot more from him. And then let's get into the goals. And that first one by Moukoko. This was, I mean, we rolled in this game, but there was also an aspect of like everything was just kind of going our way. This first goal being one of them, where the ball's kind of bobbling around. I think it had potential to be an own goal, and then Moukoko had this little flick just to get it, I think, on target and in the back of the net. He was definitely in an offsides position, but because it was a pass from the Augsburg player back, I mean, we get the goal out of it. It was very bizarre. And then even
bizarre. It was a bizarre start to the game.
His goal later, which I know in between those, we had the goal from Mullen. Great to see him play a lot of minutes and get back, showing that his fitness is back. That's why I was a little surprised too. We didn't see him at all in the Champions League game, because how many minutes he played in this one, and the fact that he did perform pretty well. And then Moukoko's second goal also, like, great for Moukoko to get a brace. Such weird goals though, where you're definitely not like hanging your hat on that brace necessarily, because the second one comes from this corner where the keeper just completely misses it, and there's a lot of pressure and like congestion in the box, but it just falls right to Moukoko, but like hits him in the chest and then just rolls in. He didn't even get a touch on his foot or anything. It's a little odd, but
yeah, it was a bizarre first half between the goal for Daniel Mellon in the 20th minute and Reus's goal in the 34th. There were 4 goals, and one of them came from Augsburg, and the Augsburg goal came in like the 32nd minute. Literally like 2 minutes between Moukoko's goal in the 29th and then Reus's goal in the 34th. So kind of just all over the place. But again, I wasn't ever too worried, but just, lots of goals and very free-flowing, attacking, end-to-end football for those like 12, 13 minutes. It was fun to watch, but also, just slightly bizarre. And, you know, Moukoko, he's not getting many minutes this season, but it always does him a great deal of confidence for him to get 2 on the board.
And then Mecha pulling through after all the talking last week. Got a goal. I think it was a good hit. I mean, it's a good hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was fine. This was just such a weird match. Like I'm obviously excited for the 5-1 win. I was really excited the day of. Maybe I'm a little more subdued because I'm just more hyped about the Champions League. But it was such a bizarre game, and everything because the rotation, because we won 5-1, and I don't think we really expected anything like that given the rest of the Bundesliga performances.
Right.
Just such weird circumstances. But hey, I'll take it. All right, move on. Cool. Take it.
Yeah. We're usually due for one of these results at least. I would argue even maybe 2 or 3 each season. And it usually comes later in the season, not maybe towards like the end of, May or beginning of May. But, from the likes of like Gladbach last year, Wolfsburg in the spring as well. I mean, we have these 4 or 5 Stuttgart is not. Yeah, it was Stuttgart, I think, last year. Was it? I'm kind of misremembering. Freiburg, I know, but also I thought we also had a game against Stuttgart where we 4 or 5 balled them. If it wasn't last year, it might have just been in the year before that, but I'm pretty sure it was maybe last spring. But either way, we were due for one of these results is what I was getting at. And a good time to have it going right into the Champions League, one of the biggest games in club history. So it's did a great deal for confidence and also, of course, just resting the players as well.
Do you think that means we're due for a big old slip up coming up soon?
Against who? Are you talking about in the Bundesliga?
Yeah. I mean, I thought that's why I was concerned because we've had the ups and downs pretty consistently, and that's why I was concerned going to the PSG. But yeah, I don't know. We are this weekend back in Bundesliga action against Mainz, and we are on the road in Mainz in May. It's got me worried.
Yeah,
I mean, only because I'm having flashbacks, and I think we'll probably rotate again, not as heavily because I mean, like we said, the Champions League isn't until June. I think Malen gets a start. I think I just feel like we should be, and I feel we always say this. We should have this confidence. We should be rolling, right? And then the team does something to like humble us. But coming off this Champions League win, coming off that 5-1 win, I think we start Reus, we start Malen, we do some rotation, and we should cruise into this match too.
Yeah, I think you'll see bits and pieces of the Augsburg lineup, I would imagine, meshed with some of the PSG lineup. I think Sula gets some minutes as well at the weekend. Mainz, they're unbeaten in their last 7 games, which is pretty impressive, and that's not even discussing some of these results. And if you go back, some decent results here. I mean, they drew against Leipzig. They have beat Hoffenheim 4-1 just 2 weeks ago. They, of course, also drew Heidenheim most recently as well. So, I mean, they've definitely pulled their weight in the past like month or so and gotten themselves out of this relegation zone for the Bundesliga. I mean, for a while, it was between the 3 of, Mainz, Cologne, and Darmstadt, but now Mainz have really pulled themselves out of that. Of course, they're still in the playoff spot, but they are right there with Union Berlin too. So, I mean, they're going to be fighting for their lives for some points here. But I think with just the confidence that we have right now coming off PSG, of course, we have close to a full squad here. I mean, the back line is going to be a little bit tricky, but we have a lot of players at our disposal and hungry for minutes, hoping to get some minutes back in terms of fitness as well. Haller was on the bench for Paris. I'm imagining he'll get a small appearance. I think we have to get as much minutes as we can out of Haller for these last 2 Bundesliga games to get him into somewhat match fitness if we need him in that final. So I'm imagining we'll see a little bit of him as well, but either way, I think we can grind out a win here. It's just going to be tough because Mainz are, fighting for their lives here and their livelihoods.
Yeah. So on, just looking at is it 2 matches left in the Bundesliga?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. What are your, do you think there's a chance we can still take that 4th spot? So looking at these next 2 matches, we're away at Mainz this Saturday. And then next weekend, we are home, final Bundesliga game of the season, ending it at home against Darmstadt. Are you predicting 6 points from these matches? Like, realistically, 6 points?
I am, but I don't think Leipzig give up another 3, to be honest with you. I mean, they have...
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah, they have... Excuse me, now I just had it. They had Werder Bremen, which, I mean, that's going to be a tough ask, of course. But Frankfurt is their last game of the season, and they feel like they've been pretty underwhelming in the past month. Frankfurt of course, they've had some really, really tough oppositions. They've played Stuttgart, Bayern, and Leverkusen in just the past 3 weeks. So it's, of course, a very, very tough ask. But they've also only had one win in their last, I think, like 6 or 7 games. So I don't have too much confidence in Frankfurt pulling on a win against Leipzig. I'm pulling for them. I hope they do, so we can get that 4th spot, but I just don't personally see it happening. I think the loss against Leipzig solidified our 5th spot this year.
Yeah, that's all. I was just pulling up their matches and seeing, like, it'd be nice. It'd be real nice if we can make me feel, I'm feeling, it's such weird. I don't know how you're feeling, Carver. I'm feeling so mixed because, like, I want to be excited for the season overall. I still have these weird, like, because of Champions League, obviously I'm excited, but there's just this weird Bundesliga is kind of whatever, and I don't like that. Like, I want to finish more on a high in the Bundesliga, and maybe it is just winning these last 2 matches. Maybe that'll get me there, and I don't know. But how are you feeling with this season overall and where we're at now?
Today has changed everything, hasn't it? It's making me eat some of my words. Of course, 5th place is very, very underwhelming. That is not even close to what this club should be aiming for in terms of football success, at least domestically. But internationally, man, it's just been a game changer. I hate to admit it, but I don't think there's an argument now for Terzic to not be manager, at least going into the next season, just given the result and the place that he has put us in today. But we'll have to see. I still think, given we're getting to a Champions League final for sure. But if the results are not I should say the performances are not getting better in the Bundesliga next year, I still think we should be looking elsewhere. Go back a few years, you could argue, if Spurs were, quick to jump the gun, but 5 months after Spurs reached the Champions League final with Mauricio Pochettino, they went and sacked him because they were just performing so poorly in the following season. And I could absolutely still imagine that happening. But just right now, full focus should be on Champions League final and then go from there. That is going to be so huge in so many number of ways to hopefully set us up for even more success next season. But yeah, if it weren't for the Champions League run, I would just be saying I just need to wrap the season. Who gives a shit about these last 2 games, really?
Yeah, and I think we've been saying it since they've come in. Like, I think credit does go to Şahin, and I'm not saying all the credit, but there is definitely this. Maybe this is working. Şahin and Binder, who have come in, and maybe they've kind of built this coaching unit that's, because I don't think you can argue that, like, they have helped and made so many changes, because I think how you see them interacting, or players interacting with them, how you see, like, how interactive they are on the touchline.
In training too.
Training.
Şahin and Bender, they've been running a lot of training sessions. It looks like Terzic has taken somewhat of a backseat, at least early on in those opening phases of them being new to the club. They've done a lot of different things in the behind the scenes for the club.
Yeah. So I think there's something to say that maybe this is working. Maybe this coaching group is working, and we did need them to come in to kind of shift and help Terzic, because, like, everyone has different roles. We're not saying Şahin and Binder are just pulling the strings and Terzic is just kind of the puppet sitting there, but it's more like working as a unit. Because not all there's argument, like in America, we always say coaches, right? But there's this role managers, and there can be a difference to that. Not all managers are the ones doing the tactics. And maybe that's just what he needed. He needed the help from these guys to solidify the tactics. And I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. This is all just speculation, but maybe it is working. And I think you're right. Like, he definitely deserves to stay and stick around. Let's see how we start next season. And if it's the up and down roller coaster, if it's just a lot of bad, it's like, yeah, then maybe we need to make the change. I do think you're right though. Like, you can't argue with the Champions League run. And because of that, he definitely deserves to stick around. I had a friend send me this tweet, not knowing, like, fully how I feel about things, but it was, and I'm going to get this name wrong. The tweet is from Felix Tamsut, but I don't even care if I mispronounce it, because he deserves to have it mispronounced, because he said, last season, Borussia Dortmund lost the Bundesliga title 4 minutes before the end of the season. Edin Terzic, a BVB fan turned coach, burst into tears. Now he's Champions League finalist. He deserves this more than anyone. And it's the video after that, the game, or at Westfalenstadion where he's crying. And I'm like, all right, cool. Marco Reus deserves this way more than Edin Terzic does. Get out of here with that tweet. Get out of here.
Right. Yeah, we have 6 losses in the Bundesliga this year, which is the second least, right behind Leverkusen. Even less wins than Bayern. But whether it's our wins, our draws, or our losses in the Bundesliga, all have been horrendous performances, at least for, I would argue, 85% of the games, if not 90% of the games this season. So it's not, the results are, I don't know, they're not great. They're definitely putting us in 5th place at the moment, so it's not good enough. But every team in front of us, we just have not been playing better than this whole season on a consistent basis. So, I mean, the unattractive, boring shit show of a show that is Edin Terzic football. I mean, he has somehow gotten us to the Champions League final, and I think that obviously changes a lot of what we've been saying for the past few months about his future at the club. But I still think he should be on a short leash, definitely in terms of like the transfer strategy and just going forward too with these results domestically next year.
Yeah, seeing Lars Ricken come in, it's going to be interesting to see how things change a little bit. I think it's going to be such an interesting summer, and
it really is.
Hopefully I hope we learn the club's intentions very quickly in the summer, and not just kind of wait to see what happens. I hope they start making some moves, and we get kind of a clear picture of their direction. And not to, I feel like this episode maybe lean a little more negative on the end because we just start talking toxic Terzic stuff, and I apologize for that. So much to be excited about, so much to celebrate. We're going to freaking Wembley. We're going to the Champions League final, and that's what you should be hyped about. Like, forget everything else. Like, just enjoy.
Literally. Fuck the last 56 minutes.
enjoy the fact that we're going to Wembley, and enjoy that match. We're going to talk between now and then. We'll be back next week after the Mainz match this weekend. But yeah, just be so hyped. Wear your black and yellow proudly, and be so hyped for this club. And I don't know if I have anything else.
Yeah, thank you as always for listening with us and celebrating with us. This has been a very fun episode. Apologies to anyone that has heard my sniffling, or just if you're watching on YouTube or anything that's watching the visual version, because allergies have hit me like a goddamn train the past 24 hours. So
I thought you were just being emotional. I thought you were crying this whole time.
A little bit of that too.
All right, guys, we appreciate hanging out, and we will see you later. We'll be back next week. Bye.